Hi friends, so you might have noticed that this video was taken down. Apparently there was a copyright claim from someone called The Funky Farmer, who is somebody in England, and they obviously took exception to me using some of their footage from their dairy farm, their organic, in quotes, dairy farm, where it was just a minute's worth of footage where the dairy cows had been kept in this large stall, and they were very eager to get out onto the grass. And once they got out onto the grass, as any sentient being would want to feel grass under their feet and not be crammed up in a big shed with a whole bunch of other large animals, they were prancing around and looked very happy to be finally out on grass, where they should be out on grass instead of in a big confined space with a whole bunch of other animals. And I imagine that that's probably something that is done every day. They probably brought into this large barn, and I don't know how often they get out on the grass. But anyway, obviously Mr. Funky Farmer took exception to me using footage with no sound, by the way. It was just a minute's worth, with my video about organic farms and organic dairy, which you'll find out that organic dairy he likes to depict, and lots of dairy farmers like to depict this idea of organic, happy cows, organic dairy farms as this place where everything is happy and the cows are happy. And so before I continue with this video that was taken down after a copyright claim from the Funky Farmer and his dairy farm, his organic dairy farm, I just wanted to explain that I'm not going to show that footage. I'm going to just explain what it was and why it's deceptive, because all those cows, they have very, very large udders, and those udders are full of milk for the calves that have been taken from them, and those calves have been either taken from them so they can then become the replacements for those mother cows. And if you've ever seen a calf being taken from their mother, it is a most distressing sight, because they absolutely are beside themselves, obviously, because as any mother would be, you would do anything to not be separated from your child. Well, that's exactly what's going on here. And that's what happens every day on any dairy farm, whether it's organic, in quotes, or whether it's the full-scale industrialized farm. So dairy young calves as young as one day old or 1 week old, probably less than that, are taken from their mothers. And so all those cows that were in this footage that I showed, that was a minute long, that were prancing around because they were so relieved to be out of the farm, out of the confined area, they all had udders full of milk for calves that have been stolen from them, basically. And either the female calves are stolen from them and actually either given to another farmer, or they're kept to replace that mother when that mother is killed at around 5 years old. All those dairy cows in that footage of the Funky Farmer, that footage was filmed in 2012. All those cows would most likely be killed by now, because they don't really allow cows to live for their full life of 20 years. They kill them at around 5 years old because they're not so productive. And that's the whole thing about organic dairy. It's no different from really any other dairy, farming facility, in that the idea is to have these animals so you can use them as resources and property, and they have to be productive, otherwise they're no use. You can't profit from them. So all those cows that were in that footage that I showed, that were all prancing around and looking so happy to be alive, and so happy to be out, they were so happy to be outside on the grass, which is obviously something they don't get to do very much. They're all dead now. They've all been killed, and possibly even the children they had have been killed, because that was 2012. So that was 7 years ago. So So all those cows, their udders were full, really heavy udders, and that milk goes to humans. We're the only species that drinks another species' milk. So all of that suffering, the killing and the taking of children, and if you've ever seen a mother cow being separated from their child, it's really appalling. And I haven't gotten to the bit about male calves. Any male calves that are born onto any dairy farm, whether it's organic, in quotes, or industrialized, pretty much all of them are taken away at a day old or something like that, and they are taken to a slaughterhouse because they are no use to a dairy farm because they don't produce milk, and you don't need all those male calves. So all those calves that that are male are taken away pretty much and killed pretty much straight away, and they're put on trucks in freezing cold weather or hot weather, and they're not given anything to drink. They're separated from their mother, and they can hardly walk, and it's really, really awful. And the mothers are grieving for sometimes days. I've seen it with my own eyes, calves being separated from their mothers, because I live rurally, and I see, I've lived near a dairy farm, one of these organic, in quotes, dairy farms, and it's a terrible sight to see when they're being separated from their mother. And you know if they're male, it's not going to be good. And if they're female, they're kept and they're impregnated regularly, and they give birth, and then eventually when they're not productive, they're killed too. So it was unfortunate that Mr. Funky Farmer, the Funky Farmer, decided to have that removed, because now I wasn't going to talk about his farm or any other specific farm, but since he felt the need to try and hide or try and squash an honest discussion about what really happens on dairy farms, his whole farming channel is about a year on a dairy farm, and it all looks like it's all happy, happy, happy. Well, I don't know. Does he show mothers being separated from their calves? Does he go down does he film slaughterhouses where the young calves are being slaughtered, or the mothers are being slaughtered eventually when they're not productive? You know, I mean, all of this. It's all part of it. And so don't believe this myth of the happy cow and think that buying organic dairy products is somehow kind to animals, or it's the good kind, in quotes, of dairy. It's all suffering, and it all ends in death. Organic dairy cows end up at the same slaughterhouses as any other cow, and they're horror houses. So that's dairy for you, whether it's the happy cow false promotion that people like to put out there to make people think, oh, I better buy that particular dairy, I better buy that particular yogurt, that's from organic cows, they're happy cows. Or if you see them in the fields, I see cows all around the place in the fields. They all end up in the same slaughterhouses. Their children are taken from them. They are impregnated, it's all a myth, this happy cow thing. Or happy animals in general. It's a myth. And it would be really good, the way to abandon this deception that we are given every single day in advertising and on YouTube and so forth. The way to abandon that is to go vegan. So I hope that you will consider going vegan. It'll be one of the best decisions you make in your life, and there are so many alternatives, great alternatives to the suffering and to the cholesterol-ridden violence that is in dairy. There are so many reasons not to use animal products. The most important reason is because non-human animals are sentient. They're not our property. They never were. And so we need to abandon that idea that they're here for us to use. They are here for their own reasons on this planet. They're not here for us to be using them as things and stealing their young and repeatedly impregnating them. And on the industry calls it a rape rack and so forth. It's an appalling thing. And cows are wonderful sentient beings, just like other animals that we are eating on our plates, that we are wearing on our backs, that we are using. We don't need to use them. And Not only that, but it is responsible for tremendous devastation of the environment. And I'm going to show you those memes later on in this video that I've already previously recorded. You can see how devastating animal agriculture is to the planet. So there is no win-win. There is no good reason to continue on using any kind of dairy, any kind of animal products, full stop. There is no good reason whatsoever. So let's just abandon it. It'll be better for you, and it'll be better for the planet, and it's better, most importantly, it is the right thing to do for non-human animals. So let's stop let's stop buying the nonsense that is put out in the media, on social media, and on advertising and by governments and all that sort of thing. Let's stop buying that nonsense. It's all a scam to sell expensive animal products. Let's go vegan, and let's become part of this great vegan movement, which is a peace movement. Let's do that. And it is a moral imperative now, not only for ourselves and other animals on this planet who deserve the right not to be used as things, but it's a moral imperative to address the climate crisis, to end our use of animals. So anyway, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to update my video that was taken down because of that 1 minute footage from that organic dairy farm, organic in quotes, dairy farm. And I'll just replace that with probably some still images. And I hope that you'll go vegan. Check out my vegan resource, howtogovegan.org. And thank you so much for watching. Please continue on watching this video because I give a description of what happens on organic dairy farms. Okay. I thought I should do some more talks on why we should respect animals, which means going vegan, because I do vegan education every day. I just don't do it necessarily in video form like this, but I go around online and look for opportunities to talk about veganism, and there's a lot, and in my daily life. This is as an important issue to me as any issue because there aren't that many people talking about the ethical reasons to be vegan, and there are very good reasons why, if we're for nonviolence and justice, that we should become vegan. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm not one for advocating for humane use of animals, humane in quotes, and I've done a couple of videos, at least 2, about this, 2 or more, and you can find that in the vegan playlist on Faint Signals from Vega. And I don't advocate for humane use of animals because when something is wrong, we shouldn't be finding nice ways of doing it, nice in quotes. We shouldn't be finding better ways of doing the wrong thing. So that's why I don't talk about using animals in any kind of nice way, because that's really all about our conscience, isn't it, really? And it's all about selling very expensive animal products. That's what the market does. You know, they know that people think animals morally matter, and so they appeal to the public by doing these very small efforts that are still economically efficient for the industry, which mean very little to animals, and really, if applied to humans, would be considered torture. I think if we're against something, if we're against, if we're against the torture and killing of humans, then we should never advocate for humane torture or, sort of reductions in torture. We advocate for the end of it. And if we're against enslaving humans, we don't sort of say, well, that particular group of humans, it's okay if you enslave them, but those other humans, that's not okay. That other group of humans, that's not okay. We're right across the board with it. We're against it. So, and there's nothing extreme about that position. It's just a morally consistent position. Because a lot of us say that we are against the torture and killing of animals, and we would possibly step in if we saw somebody mistreating an animal. Some of us would dive on them like we're a stunt person. We really don't like that, and that's because a lot of us do believe that animals morally matter. We don't like to see people harming them. I'm going to read you a description of from What's Wrong with Vegetarianism from UVE Archives, and it's a good site, UVE Archives. You can find a lot of essays about veganism, and some of the essays you can find in podcast form on my podcast, my comprehensive vegan podcast, howtogovegan.org. So I wanted to read you what happens on an organic milk farm to organic cows, organics in quotes, because I want you to think about, imagine if you saw somebody doing this to, say, the dog whom you lived with, or, if you just saw this happening before your eyes. And there's Alia in the background. She likes to get in my videos. She has a little Bird Be Safe collar on. No, we don't like to dress up our cats. So anyway, I'm going to read you this because this is something that everybody who is not vegan, what we drink and what we eat, these products, these dairy products, and we often think, this is a great, this organic milk, these people must treat their cows really nicely, so I can use this product. And just remember that I'm against, doesn't matter how nicely, in quotes, people are supposedly using animals, that it's still enslavement and still using them as property and resources, so it doesn't matter to me what the description would be, if it was heavenly or if it was hellish. That's wrong to me. And any vegan who is vegan for ethical reasons, and that's what veganism is, an ethical position, would be against any sort of use of animals like this, whether it's done really nicely or whether it's on some, full-on industrialized setting, which a lot of farms are now, even the ones that call themselves free range in quotes and so forth. So anyway, here I'm going to read this, and just remember this when you think, these happy animal products, these humane labels are great, or you think that, a little bit of this won't hurt, because it's organic milk and they're probably treated really well in all of this. And remember that, if we think animals morally matter, why do we think this is okay for cows who are sentient and who normally live for 20 years, and they are very, very sweet animals. They all have individual personalities and so forth. The little calves are the same. Why do we think it's okay to do this? Okay, so like humans and all mammals, cows need to be impregnated to produce milk. Organic cows are therefore repeatedly impregnated, often on a device called a quote-unquote rape rack, where they are inseminated either artificially or by a bull. Cows would normally live about 20 years, but due to the economics of the quote-unquote organic milk industry, they are usually slaughtered after 5 years when they lose the ability to generate commercially viable quantities of milk. During this short 5-year lifespan, they are pregnant about 9 months out of every 18 to 24 months and give birth to a calf 2 or 3 times. Some of the female calves will end up as dairy cows to eventually replace their mothers and grandmothers. Most of the calves from organic dairy producers, however, are forcibly abducted from their mothers, who often grieve the loss intensely and sold to the veal industry. Although some organic dairy cows are permitted to graze outside during part of the year, many organic cows never see the light of day until they are transported to slaughter. Just as with quote-unquote free-range layer hens, organic dairy cows and their calves are transported and slaughtered in the same manner as any other cow or steer. Often they are confined to tractor-trailer for days of transport, and sometimes through extremely hot or cold weather conditions. Because they are depleted from so much milk production and from genetics designed to maximize milk output, they are often much weaker than quote-unquote beef cattle when they arrive at slaughter. Indeed, most of the quote-unquote downers, cows too sick to walk, are dairy cows, including dairy cows from organic dairies. When they arrive at slaughter, downers are often cruelly prodded with electric prods and or bulldozed into slaughter, as was displayed earlier in the year on national television in undercover films. Actual slaughter can be an unimaginably horrific and terrifying experience. Although the cows and steers are supposed to be stunned in quotes, with a captive bolt gunshot to the skull, this can be difficult for workers to achieve, especially with the rapid pace at which animals are moved on the line. This can result in the animals being fully awake when they are shackled, hoisted upside down, and cut at the throat. Because cows and steer who are not properly stunned are sometimes flailing around at the cutting section of the fast-paced line, they occasionally miss the throat cut, or the cut is not sufficient to kill them. Due to the production pressure to keep the line moving, these cows and steer will often end up alive at the hide-ripping machine. Commercially viable organic milk production, regardless of the label it is sold under, is extremely cruel to cows and calves and requires mass slaughter. Organic dairy cows are physically and psychologically broken by the time they reach the slaughterhouse, which can be an unimaginable horror story in itself. Consuming organic dairy products, milk, cheese, ice cream, cream cheese, sour cream, simply makes no sense for anyone concerned about the treatment or slaughter of animals. That's just a part of that essay, What's Wrong with Vegetarianism? And so I invite you to check that out at UVE Archives, which I'll leave a link to this particular essay. But you can check out my comprehensive vegan resource, howtogovegan.org, because I've done lots of different episodes of things related to this and other issues. It's comprehensive, and I think you'll find it very helpful if you're thinking about becoming vegan. So on another day, I'll share the essay about free-range eggs, and it's not a happy story. You know, if you think this is bad, well, wait until you listen to free-range eggs. The rationale for reading that to you, and I don't show graphic images on my channel, and I don't really show them at all because I think if you want to find that kind of thing, there's a lot of it already online. But also, as I said, it wouldn't matter to me whether animals had a lovely life and they were individually put to bed at night and stroked to sleep, and then at the time of their death somebody came along and stroked their head while they cut their throat. It wouldn't matter to me at all because I don't believe that we have the right to take their lives. I don't believe we have the right to confine them all their life and to steal their children and impregnate them over and over again and do all the awful things that we do to them, like cutting off their genitals without pain relief. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but the basic line is I do not believe that we should be using sentient animals who are just like us. They're just different species. They have different likes and personalities and all of that. They just have a different way of going about in the world, and I don't believe we have the right to use them as property, as resources, as things, because we wouldn't like to be used like that. And their only crime, in quotes, is that they were born on this planet with us as a species. It's their misfortune, sadly, to be born on this planet with us when we think that might makes right because we can get away with it, therefore it's okay to do it. And we do that towards humans as well. And that's why I always link veganism with other forms of discrimination. Speciesism equals racism equals sexism equals heterosexism equals ableism equals classism and so forth, because they're all forms of violence. They're all interrelated. They target a particular group based on a relevant criterion, which in this case is species, and they exclude groups from the moral community based on an irrelevant criterion. And so, we are excluding from our moral concern 99.99% of the planet just because they happen to be a different species to us. And that's really, it's not justifiable in a moral sense to do that. So that's why I'm vegan, and it took me a while to become vegan. I became vegan later in life. I thank goodness for the internet, because I happened to just come across something online and about dairy, not even as graphic as this. I thank whoever posted that, but I read it and I thought, this, if this is how the dairy industry is, if this is the normal running of the dairy industry, then I can imagine this is the normal running of other industries, and sure enough it is. It just shows how powerful indoctrination is, because it's something we don't even think about. And then when someone brings it up to us and it comes out of the blue, it sounds like they're speaking a foreign language sometime, although there's a lot more talk of this now, and there are many millions of vegans on the planet, but say 14 years ago even, it wasn't something that was that common. I got a lot more pushback when I started doing vegan education 14 years ago. So it's only getting easier to be vegan, thank goodness for that. But there's still, like 200 plus million, that's just the land animals, sentient animals, 200 plus million land animals tortured and killed every day on the planet, and 180 million of those animals are chickens, and chickens are sentient. And it doesn't matter how much we try to make out that they're stupid and all of this kind of thing so that we don't have to care about them. The fact is they're sentient and they're not stupid. But even if they were sort of totally not like us at all, which they are in many ways like us, even if they weren't, it doesn't make any difference. They're sentient and they have a right to exist just like we do, and a right to be free of torture and exploitation. So anyway, my point of all of this is that don't believe these humane labels that people say, well, don't buy that. Buy my chickens on my farm are happy and you get their eggs, or, all these different sorts of things that people say about animals, sort of suggesting to people. It's completely unsustainable, by the way, for the world's population to rely on these so-called free range and grass-fed and all this kind of thing anyway. And if you've ever seen those memes I've put out about the environment in relation to the devastation by animal agriculture, I'll just quickly show them now. So you can see that, as Chris Hedges on Contact Show said one time in relation to the looming food crisis, animal agriculture is unsustainable and it cannot feed the planet. We're going to have to rely on something else, and that means plant-based. So we're going to have to rely on something else other than animal agriculture. And I would hope that people rely on plant-based because it's much preferable to torturing and killing 200 plus million animals every day and destroying the planet at the same time and causing tremendous problems, in relation to climate crisis. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's starting to get dark, so I might wrap it up here. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you aren't already, and hit the notifications bell if you like the content. Please click the like button if you like the content, and also please, if you wish, leave comments. I always enjoy comments, and if you have any questions about veganism, please don't hesitate to ask. Just leave the questions in the comments section and I'll try and get to them. And check out my vegan resource in podcast form, howtogovegan.org. So till next time, bye for now.